private, personal, like art that you're trying to do. Like, you know, you're engineering for all these other artists and then you're doing your own art, like, and it's all in the same studio. So like, do you find that that's difficult? And the other thing was, hold on, I have it on the tip of my tongue. Let's start with that, and then I'll see if I get the other one.
Great. I do find it, I guess, quote unquote, difficult. I've always kind of had this mentality of it's music. It's nothing about it should be difficult. Nothing about it should be stressful and painful. You know what I mean? Besides maybe the songs and the songwriting that can be painful. You know?
Sure.
But
hearts get broken, man.
Yeah, exactly. But it's always kind of just been like, you know, I've always just been like, I'm not performing heart surgery over here. I don't have people's lives in my hands. Like, there's a million more important sort of jobs out there that, you know, so it's like I've kind of always just had this mentality of like, nothing should be difficult about making music, about doing music. It should be fun. And if it's not fun, then you're not, you're
not doing it right.
The right place. Yeah, exactly.
Sure.
Or you're not doing it right.
You're preaching to all us perfectionist, anal people, you know?
Yes. I mean, I'm definitely one of them, but you know, you gotta have fun with it. You gotta have, you know, it's music. It should be fun.
Absolutely.
You know, but to say, is it difficult to, yeah, it's slightly difficult because I'm always in my head, I want to be working on my original stuff. You know, in an ideal world, I would just make a living creating my own stuff and whatever, and that's it, and that's all I got to focus on, you know? So it is a little difficult because some days I wake up and I'm like noodling around on guitar or piano. I'm like, oh, this is a cool idea. I want to work on that. And then, oh, it's 1 o'clock. I guess got to start my day, and I'll be in the studio till 8. And then by the time I'm done with that session, it's like, well, kind of lost steam, and you know, so it is a little bit difficult. So it's really just kind of a scheduling game. You know, I gotta try to leave enough time so that I can keep my sanity and make my own music, but I also gotta make a living. So I gotta book clients. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. Have you found anything to kind of get yourself inspired to get in the studio and do your original stuff in those like little spaces? Like any like tactics that have helped you?
I think for the most part, I've kind of been, you know, I'm going to say my roommate, Dan, who's also part of the band. That
he's the bass player, right?
Yeah. He's like, he's an interesting character because I oftentimes, like, I write a song or whatever I'm doing. I pre-plan everything. And he's like introduced this new aspect of it where he just comes in the studio and he's just like, I'm just going to write a song. I'm just going to sit at the computer all day and I'm just going to create a song right now, you know, which I always never did that. I always just came from a school of like, I'm going to write everything first and then figure out the tiny details. But so it's like, you know, there's two ways of pursuing that, I guess, which is that you could just sit down and say, I'm writing a song today. Like, it's happening and I'm going to record it and whatever. So I think in the studio, I'm like, it doesn't necessarily influence my, what I have in mind. Cause I always have a vision of a song going into it. You know, be me producing it or recording it or writing it, you know?
Yeah.
There's always once I hear it, I instantly can get a vision of like, okay, this should be like that and that should be like that. And this should be like,
telltales of a good producer.
I guess.
For sure. Definitely.
So, you know, it's, you know, the studio environment inspires, obviously, you know, I'm in here and you're surrounded by musical instruments and musical people, and you're going to get ideas, you know.
And Bill Murray.
And giant Bill Murray, always looking over my shoulder.
Literally.
But yeah,
literally.
Literally. But yeah, for the most part, like I said, I've kind of always been like, I've never read music. I don't really write music, but I've always wanted to be one of those people that can just write a score and then go in the studio and just like play it exactly. You know what I mean? So whatever, I do it the guitar player way, which I just record all the parts separately and then bring them in and just make it work from there, you know?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, the other thing I wanted to ask you actually about before was like practices to like do stuff faster so you actually have more time to do more stuff, right? You were saying how you want to do a lot of stuff, right? Like,
sure.
Any tactics or things that you've discovered that help you work faster in the studio and get it done faster?
Absolutely. I mean, luckily we're in a position where I can leave everything mic'd up at all times. So you know, the biggest part of any recording is the drums, you know, and everything else besides the drums is easy, you know, couple mics, you know. I actually, on a side note, I did a harp recording for the first time the other day, but that was
That's
a little more
awesome.
complicated. But
Yeah, we got to be
So,
careful about the phase of the microphones, because if you stereo mic it,
it's very
You gotta be
true.
really
And I
careful
had
with
of course, I had 7 mics on it, you know.
oh my god.
But it was funny because Dan walked in here while we were recording it, and he's like, "How many mics do you need for a harp?" And I was like, "You'd be surprised, I guess." But anyway,
Less
like
than
I
a drum
said,
set.
just
Yeah.
yes, having things set up, you know, just always ready to go, always
Mm-hmm.
ready to, you know, because if you get an idea and you're like, "I want to record that on drums," it takes an hour to set up to mic. You know what I mean? So it's like the fact that you have a kit all ready to be
Yeah.
mic'd up and recorded. All I have to do is push a couple buttons, put phantom power on a couple channels, and like boom, we're ready to go in 5 minutes, and you can get that idea out.
Yeah.
So there's that, and there's like the making templates thing is huge. You know, it's like me and Dan and the other guy who lives here, Joe. We all have templates for like how we like to do things. You know what I mean? So it's like I come in and I have a 4-piece band coming in here, and it's just like I have a 4-piece template ready to go. It might not be exactly what they have, but it's like close enough that it's only going to take me another couple minutes to really get everything set up, you know? So the template thing is huge. Those are like I'd say those are the 2 main things that save hours, literally hours of setup time.
Absolutely.
And also, you know, if you book a client, always try to make sure that you're
ready.
leave a little time, leave yourself 2 hours before they get there to get in the studio and really. Like, I don't like to be that guy, like, they show up and I'm like, just another hour of stuff I got, you know? I like to come in and I like to be waiting for them, you know what I mean? It's like...
Yeah, I'm also really big into the template and, like, getting things, like, up and running really quickly. And I found... So, I'll tell you, like, I have this microphone called the VMS, the virtual microphone system from Slate.
Yep.
And it literally has, like, 13 mics in one. So, like,
yes.
For me, if I have a vocalist coming over, like, I don't even care what mic to put up. I just put up that mic. I know one of those microphones will work in the mix. And it's like I don't even have to think about like auditioning different mics and whatever, any of that stuff. And yeah, templates for sure. What templates do you have besides from like recording templates? Do you have mixing templates? Do you anything else?
Yeah, I mean, I've basically made both. I more often use the recording templates than the mixing ones. Because usually while I'm tracking people, you know, I'm sifting through plugins and putting shit on channels and just, you know, I'm doing that as they're kind of tracking and stuff like that, and just sort of, you know, because I always like to give them a mix, obviously, at the end of the day. So I'm kind of going in there and trying to get it as close to mastering as possible for them to listen to so that they'll hear what it's actually going to sound like.
So you actually mix as you go?
Yeah, sort of. You know, I don't automate as you go, because that's just a foolish thing to do, I think.
Yeah.
So the volume automation and stuff like that, obviously that takes a minute to kind of get done, and you got to go through people's notes and what they want. They tell you, we want this down here, we want this up, we want the vocals to sound like this. But for the most part, I'm just kind of like, as I'm going, I'm putting plugins on so that when it comes to mixing, I'm just like, I've got that song, I've got that session. And then if it's a particular, like one band that's doing multiple sessions, it's like I'm just copying and pasting so that their whole album kind of sounds
cohesive.
Cohesive, exactly. And, you know, unless they want some other different production style on a certain song or whatever.
Right.
But yeah, really, like, you know.
Yeah, if you're tracking like bands as more like rock band kind of stuff, then I think it's much easier to kind of like copy and paste the settings and kind of like.
Yes.
It depends on the production, obviously, right? Like.
Yeah. I mean, if you're a Pro Tools guy, you got to know import session data. You know, that's like the biggest feature of Pro Tools is that you have another session, you can import anything from any channel into that new session, you know, and that's, you know, it's kind of an on the fly way rather than making a template to do stuff, you know, because if you're dialed in,
sounds super useful. I'm a Logic guy, so I don't actually know the Pro
I'm sure
Tools
that
way.
You know, I'm sure they all have it, but you're just, as I said, you're importing information from any session, you know.
Yeah, I mean, what I do is I'll often save like a channel strip. I'll be like, you know, this guy's vocal like super compressed or whatever, and I could just pop that on, you know, not even in a template. So that's like my quickie thing for that.
Yep.
So as a guitar player and someone who records a lot of guitar, what's your approach for guitar tone? Do you have any like philosophy? Like, let's talk about your guitar tone.
Sure. So my philosophy is that, which is, I'm sure this is shared by many people, which is that it's basically garbage in, garbage out. You know, you got to start from the source. It doesn't matter what mics you're using, what preamps you're using. If your guitar amp and your guitar don't sound good, it's not going to track well, you know? So you need to really consider the tone and style of guitar that you're going for, or, you know, any instrument. But me being a guitar player, I'm obviously a lot more picky about my guitar tones. So on the technical side, I learned from Steve Kahn, my teacher, I just asked him about his rig and like what his miking, what his engineer had done and stuff like that. And it was a pretty standard setup. You know, he had a Marshall stack I think he was playing through. He's more in the jazz fusion world, but they still kind of played loud. He said, you know, they were always really digging in. So, and it's hard with being a clean jazz guitar player to keep up. You know, his band was Dennis Chambers and Anthony Jackson, which is like, you know,
wow,
two monster musicians, right?
Holy crap.
So, you know, to dig in with that clean tone and really sit above the mix. And, you know, obviously they're an incredibly dynamic band too, but anyway, his miking technique was just, he said the engineer was very simple. They just did a Royer ribbon mic, 121, and a 57 on a Marshall stack, and that was it. And he mic'd two, I think it was like two opposite speakers they did. You know, if you're looking at the four speakers, I think it was like the top left and the bottom right or something like that.
Caddy corner.
Yeah, so I don't own any stacks like that. I'm like a 112 type of guy, but I still do the two mic thing. And most recently, I've had this CAD mic, CAD. You know, they're based out of Ohio, I think.
Yeah, I've heard of them.
I was at a gig at Nectar's in Burlington, Vermont, and the guy had this guitar mic. It was square and it was gold, and I had never seen anything like it before. And I had never heard anything like it before. I was just like, I had him pump my guitar through the monitor, and I was just like, this sounds amazing. This is like, you know, it's a combination of obviously the speaker as well and the mic pre's and whatever. But that mic, I was just like, this is the sound that I need live. So I went and I just bought the same exact mic. Like the next day, they don't make them anymore, so I had to buy like a used one or whatever. And
which mic was that?
It's the CAD E100. So I think there were like two models, and I bought like the older, like the OG model, whatever the first one they made. And it's incredible. And I knew it was a good mic because it needed two 9-volt batteries on top of phantom power to be powered.
Oh my God.
Know? So you know it's good if it needs that much juice, you know?
That is crazy.
Right?
I've never heard of anything. So it's a condenser mic.
It's a condenser, and then I also have I couldn't really afford a Royer 121, so I just bought some rip-off, you know, I think it's an MXL ribbon mic. You know, it's basically a clone of a 121.
Yeah.
And that combination I've kind of been using on guitar, and it sounds incredible, and being able to blend the two mics. And to go a step further, I always, you know, when I'm recording guitar, I'm doing 3 channels. I'm doing condenser mic, ribbon mic, and DI. And then the DI I rarely use, but, you know, it's just in case something goes wrong or whatever, you know. Occasionally I'll throw like a guitar simulator plug-in on it or whatever, if it calls for it. But I'm always bussing every guitar. You know, that's something that I kind of learned, like, from some past engineers that I've kind of watched do their thing. And, you know, I'm just... Every guitar, if there's guitar 1, it's those three channels, and that, you know, if it's its own part, it's not like a stereo double or something. It's like that's just getting its own bus, and I'm throwing a channel strip on that bus or an EQ or compression and all that, and I'm really dialing in that bus so that I can adjust the mics singly,
separately,
you know, and then I'm kind of controlling it and riding it with one fader through the bus, and so at the end of the day, when I, you know, it sounds like maybe a simple song, but at the end of the day, I'm working with, you know, 16 guitar tracks through 8 different buses or whatever, you know?
Wow.
So, and I've always just kind of, you know, I've just kind of taken that mentality. It's like, it's digital.
Do you bust those buses?
I don't bust the buses, but
that's something I've gotten into recently is bussing buses. It sounds actually crazy, but like in Logic, you could do these things called a track stack, which are kind of like it's like one type of bus, but it's just like the way it looks in the software is different, and then you send that to a bus. So you could send like a track stack to a bus. So now I'm like all about that in the mixing stage, at least, because it just gives me like
bussing the bus,
so many opportunities to adjust to figure out the gain staging and to figure out like, I don't know, just how I'm going to affect things. You know what I mean? It gives me I don't know if I want to compress all the guitars the same, or I want to only affect the rhythm guitars the same, and like, you know what I mean?
Sure.
So just like all these like different, just gives me a lot of leverage, I found.
Yeah.
But whatever.
That's great.
Just putting that out there.
Bussing the bus.
Yeah.
Now I'm going to have to experiment
I bust
with
the bus.
Now, you know? But
I haven't shared this yet on the podcast.
Yeah.
Okay, so tell me more about your guitar tone. Keep going.
Yeah, so I'm very, as I mentioned to you earlier, I went and saw Eric Johnson last night.
Oh yeah, the OG.
It was a really good show. You know, yeah, he's. It was a little, to be quite honest. I hope he doesn't listen to this.